back to Book Talk with Cara. Today, I am so excited to have my friend Emily Conrad on with me. If you love contemporary romance and small town stories, then you will love Emily's books. But before we get started talking about her stories, Emily, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in Wisconsin. My husband and I have a couple of rescue animals. So if we're talking about things that aren't writing yet, we've got a coonhound who I asked to leave the room for this, and he's not very happy about it. And a couple of rescue bunnies.
Oh
So
my
yeah.
gosh, rescue buddies. Oh, that's so sweet.
And they could very quietly hop around in the background, and you wouldn't even know they were there until they like chewed through a light cord and something went dark on us. Yeah.
Oh, that's so
So,
cute. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Oh, and I can totally picture the coonhound being there in the background, sitting outside the door, being like,
Yeah.
"Mom,
Yeah.
what are you doing to me?"
I heard a bark of protest, but after that, he calmed down. So I
Yeah,
think he'll be all right. His favorite place, he has this chair um, that's nearby. He tends to like to keep an eye on me.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
us writers, we need some supervision.
absolutely. Got to make sure you're focused on what you need to be fun. So as you write, I was at your list. You have written a lot of books, girlfriend. Like way more than I had. I thought I had an idea. I was wrong. You have written a lot of books. How many are you at right now?
Well, see, that's one question because do we count novellas?
Oh, I do.
So yeah, if it's got an ISBN, I feel like it counts. So then,
Absolutely. You went from beginning to end, so it
right,
counts.
yeah. So then in that case, it's 10. If we don't, it's 8. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's a great start. 10 books. Most people are hoping to write one, and you're at 10. That's fantastic.
Well, thank
If
you.
What would you say, like, if a reader is intrigued after this episode and they're like, I really want to pick up an Emily Conrad book, what kind of is your jam? When people are looking for their next read, what is an Emily Conrad book like?
Oh, that's a good question. I love romance, and it's rare for me to be able to really get into a story that doesn't have romance in
Mhm.
it. So that's going to be there. But for me to really engage in a story, I also need there to be a lot of depth to it. So my stories tend to tackle some harder issues, things like addiction or just some of those other harder issues that are relevant to our lives, and it kind of deep dives on those. And doing that, there tends to be a lot of faith in my books then too. So they should expect emotional depth and small towns and romance, and we just kind of see where the story takes us.
Yeah, like the one I've been reading is small town. There's a youth pastor. There's the heroine has custody of her younger sister, and there's
Hmm.
just all this stuff going on. But it's so small town. You can tell there's going to be this great romance, and I was just like, oh, yeah. There's depth too. I mean, it's not just the HEA. It's not just a happily ever after.
Yeah.
And so you've got this book, Risking His Heart, that's coming out in December. Tell us a little bit about this book. How did you get the original What If for Risking His Heart?
Well, one of the hardest things for me as a writer is initial ideas.
Yeah.
So in this case, Cody had the hero for this story has been in the background of a couple of other stories. So for someone who does struggle with ideas, that's nice for me because he's already a person and he already exists,
Yeah.
and I can kind of imagine the sort of things that he might be going through. So I've been setting it up. It's a best friends to love romance, again, set in a small town. This one's part of a collaborative series, which also gives me more things that I can um, work into the story too, because we've got this town that we've created together, and that, of course, is going to play a role in it. So it's yeah, so initial idea is kind of like that thread that I've been able to pull through all the stories and then finally see, well, what kind of friends to love romance do we want to write here? So,
And I love those. So partly because that's my romance. My husband and I were, best friends and then decided to take that plunge. But there's also like this huge risk involved in that type of a romance because what if it doesn't work? And so you could be like, oh, there's not a lot at stake. There's not much tension. But having had one of those, I'm like, there's a huge risk when you decide to take that leap. Because if it doesn't work, you could be losing one of your best friends in the
Right.
process. So when you've got risking is hard, I mean, it's right there in the title. There's like this huge risk. So tell us about the heroine, because I guess Cody had been around for a
Yeah.
while in your mind, but what about the heroine? How did you come up with her?
Sure. I had also kind of been planting her along the way and thinking like the Cody starts the series with a different best friend. He's friends with a guy who's also on the police force. It's police officers all over the story. So eventually his friend gets married. And the way this collaborative series works, about 6 or 7 years have passed since his former best friend got married. And so as his best friend moves into like raising his own family, then he becomes closer with Nina. And Nina is a fellow police officer. She dreamed of a career in law enforcement, and that was her plan, was to retire. What she wasn't planning on was an injury forcing her to retire early.
Mm,
So I'm gonna guess that you two have a lot of big like aspirations and things like that. And so that's a topic I like to dig into is aspirations and like what happens when we get them, what happens when it's
yeah.
actually a firm no. So for Nina being forced to kind of reevaluate her life as she gets this door shut at the start of the story. So it's not a spoiler. It happens
Yeah.
chapter one. She knows that it's coming. Um, so that's just something I kind of like to dig into, like who am I without this dream? And I think it's because, I'm someone who likes to dream and likes to work toward things like that too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and sometimes, all that hard work pays off, and sometimes that doesn't matter how hard we work, it's still not going to happen. And that can be really hard and frustrating,
yeah.
and it can cause a lot of questions of, okay, now what, God? I thought this was the plan, and now it's not the
Hmm.
plan. So where from here? Where are we
Hmm.
supposed to go? So that
Yeah.
definitely does set up a story with lots of opportunity for conflict and tension, even inside the romance. So, as you were writing this story, was there something as you were working on it or drafting it that you were like, oh, I think this really belongs in this story? And then as you got into it, you were like, oh, nope, this has to come out. Or was there something that you're like, I think this story is perfect? And then you were like, oh, I really need to add this in because there needs to be more to it.
Well, this story, I went into it with a plan, and I almost never have a firm plan. I usually start off with like characters and a lot of the internal stuff, and I kind of go from there, and hopefully the plot will happen. But what often happens in my writing process is I kind of run out of plot like halfway through.
Yeah.
And then I have to reevaluate what I've done. But in this case, I had the plot from start to finish before I started, and I was like, this book is going to be so easy to write. I'm going to write it so quickly. Well, I got it written and I followed my plan, and the emotional content, like, it just wasn't there the way,
Mm.
like, and it was so weird because that's usually like the thing that comes naturally for me. So for me, it's been a matter of going back through and making sure that it's a real Emily Conrad story, that that emotional content is there and that it makes sense and it's relatable and that, so that's
Yeah.
what it's been a matter of adding things rather than like having to take out something that I was really attached to. So it's been a different process for me. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it
it's
is so
coming
funny.
together.
It's
But
funny how each book can be a little different though in that
yeah.
because you'd be like, oh, I should have that just dialed in at this point. It's
Hmm.
book number 10. I've got it figured out. And then you're like, no,
Yeah.
no, that
No.
didn't quite work like I thought it would.
Yeah, it really didn't. So, yeah, still learning. Gonna one of these days maybe I'll have my process dialed in, but yeah. No.
No, I think it just gets harder with each book. I honestly think it just gets
Yeah.
harder. So, not to scare you, but
Yeah, no, yeah. How many books have you written now?
45. I think this is
Yeah.
46 that I just got edits back on, I
Yeah.
think. So,
You know what you're talking about. So,
oh,
yeah.
I, s- I don't, I think that. And then like I have Lisa Berggruen or Robin Lee Hatcher, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still a baby. I'm still just a baby at this process. So when you're, as you're writing these books, what's the biggest challenge for you?
Well, it is usually the initial idea. Every once in a while, I will have one that I'm like, oh, that's really good. I can write a whole book about something like that. And thankfully, that's what I had when I wrote the first book in this series. And then I think it's just the characters that interest me.
Yeah.
Because I've been writing in series, so I can do that and I can develop these characters over the course of multiple books. And I think then the payoff is there for readers who have like followed through. I hope they really enjoy that. So,
Absolutely. And because it is fun as a reader to see characters pop up over and over again and get to see kind of the progression. Now, you've talked about a collaborative series.
mhm.
So, what does that mean to you?
Sure. So there are six of us who are working together to all write stories that are set in Redemption Ridge, Colorado.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's the Christmas in Redemption Ridge series, and it's actually a spin-off of a previous collaborative series that this group of authors did before I joined in. So between us in Redemption Ridge, after my book releases, it'll be the last one for this season. There will be 18 books in the series. And you can read each one as a standalone, but the books are on the shorter side. We find people do kind of tend to like to binge through them. So if
Mhm.
if someone wants to do that, and we give each other's characters cameos.
Oh,
So I've
fun.
had like my character might be close with one of Mandy Blake's characters, or um, Tara Grace Erikson and I were working together a little bit on one scene where one of my characters got a cameo and I try to give their characters cameos. And so it's fun. We all agreed on like businesses and things that are in the town. And then if we have somebody else's character, we get the information about the character first, and then we send the scene over to the other author to kind of read it over and make sure that we got it right.
Oh, that's
And
so
yeah,
fun.
so we get to include each other's work, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to work together.
Yeah, because writing is often so solitary. So
Mhm.
then when you do get to kind of collaborate like that, like some novella collections I've been in have been that
Yeah,
collaborative and it's so much fun. But then to do
yeah.
it over a series is like a whole next level. So that's got to be really an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I mean, and we have a spreadsheet because, people who got married in so each season, so each calendar year in real
Mhm.
life, we publish six books, and there are two books per year in the story, if that makes sense. So the series in the fictional world, 9 years have gone by the time my book
Okay.
comes out in the fictional world. In the real world, 3 years have gone by. So
Okay.
we have a whole spreadsheet about how old people's kids are, because if they got married in that first year, they're going to be having kids like a couple years
Yeah.
later, or however that works. So families are growing, and we're trying to keep track of who's got kids at what age. And yeah, so it's been a lot of fun.
That is a lot of fun. And readers will pick up on if you're not tracking things. So
Yeah,
that's the
that's
other
true.
challenge with doing collaborative.
Yeah.
That's so fun. So you've been writing for a while because you've got these 10 books out now. How did you first know you were a writer? Is it something you've always wanted to do, or is it something that you kind of stumbled upon? What was kind of your journey into writing?
For me, it was a very natural thing. I remember I remember writing poetry with little markers in like a Lisa Frank notebook. She did the
Oh,
really colorful unicorn designs and stuff like that. I remember that. I've seen that poetry as an adult, and I was not writing. I was
yeah.
drawing things that looked like letters.
Oh, how
So
cute.
it's like, yeah, writing has been a lifelong love, and it was one that my mom encouraged. She had a story published in college, I think. And so it was something that was encouraged all along. So I hear some writers talk about maybe being hesitant to claim
Yeah.
that this is what they're doing, but I was really blessed in that I was I was raised with that being a legitimate possibility and with that being encouraged all along. So in middle school, I started writing more and more short stories, and they just got longer and longer. And by high school, I was writing like they were getting to be novel length or so.
Oh,
So, I started looking for an agent, and that, of course, didn't pan out because I did still have a long way to go. But yeah, so just
that's
sort of
awesome.
progressed naturally from childhood, I guess.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, when you look back on that journey, though, is there advice you would give to a younger version of yourself as you were, starting the writing journey and starting that journey towards getting your books out to a reading public?
I think by the time I became an adult and I started really wanting to be published, especially after college and then for the next 10 years or so, because it took a long time. I was really
Yeah,
dedicated to traditional publishing. I think my biggest piece of advice would be that it's okay if it takes a long time. Because I think important things happen along the way. um, that I wouldn't have wanted those early stories out now that I've written some more.
yeah,
That didn't end up getting published, that it's okay that things are still happening, even if it's not publishing right as soon as I wanted to.
yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. So here's a few quick questions for you as we wrap up. Are you a plotter or a pantser? We kind of talked around this, but
I'm kind of in the middle. The characters are more important, so I probably lean toward pantster.
yeah, I would guess that's how you landed.
Yeah.
How many hours a day do you write when you're like on deadline?
Uh, let's say three.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite snack, or do you snack when you're writing?
Uh, when the afternoons get long and I'm supposed to be writing, most likely potato chips.
Okay,
Just
so
plain old Ruffles.
yeah,
Yep.
I love the ridges.
Yep. Yep.
And are you a tea or coffee person or water?
All three.
Yeah.
Coffee in the morning, but I have a rule that I can't have it after 2 or it'll mess with my sleep. So then after that, if I want something warm, it'll be tea. And I try to drink enough water. It's good for you.
Yeah. They keep telling us that, right?
They do tell us that, yeah.
All right. And then are there any books that inspired you to become a writer?
Um, when I started writing, like very seriously writing for publication, I was writing young adult.
Mm,
And I was a big fan of Melody Carlson's young adult books. And I actually wrote to her once, and she was very gracious. And so I think she would probably have to be one. I wanted to write books like hers, and she was an encouragement to me. So I'm
I
going to
love
just
that.
kind of like blanket say her young adult work was a big deal to me.
I love that. And she's such a gracious person. So I could totally see her being encouraging. So if people want to learn more about you and your books, Emily, where should they go? What should they do to learn more about your writing?
Two options. My website, emilyconradauthor.com, or I'm pretty active on Instagram, so that's also Emily Conrad Author. So they can find me either place and find out about my books there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so fun talking with you.
Thanks for having me, Cara.